Yeah, who's even playing in this bowl game?
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
That is right. It is a Locked On crossover to preview the Pinstripe Bowl, talk some Penn State and Clemson football. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year, everyone. My name is Zach Sako. I'm the host of Locked On Nittany Lions, and I'm joined today, my co-host, Morgan Thomas, the expert on all things Clemson, your host of Locked On Clemson. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. We are talking about all the ins and outs of this game. We're going to give you our predictions, X factors, keys to the game, key players. We'll go over Penn State and Clemson's blueprint, how we think these teams are going to operate. We got to start with, though, Morgan, who's in, who's out for the Pinstripe Bowl, because that's kind of the most difficult part with any of these bowl games, is trying to figure out what the roster and the depth chart are actually going to look like. So the floor is yours. It's great to be joined by you here. Tell me, which key players do people need to know about for Clemson that are in or out for this game?
Yeah, I'm calling this the bare bones bowl, or maybe the backup bowl. That's kind of where I've been going with it on my show. The biggest thing, I think, it all centers around the defense for Clemson. There's definitely a lot when you look at it. Dabo originally mentioned 26. I think the number's now 28. Not just including players going to the NFL, but also transfer portal players that are leaving, and then just a ton of injuries. But it all centers around the defense. Turnover machine, Avion Terrell, cornerback. That's one that's going to hurt.
Huge player.
He's going to the NFL. Peter Woods, defensive tackle, hasn't had a great season this year, but projected a first-round guy, not going to be there. DeMonte Capehart, another defensive tackle, that's going to go to the NFL draft. TJ Parker, again, hasn't had a great season, but also projected to be one of the first-round draft pick kind of guys. So the defensive front has been hurt significantly. Outside of that, you have Wade Woodaz, who is a 2-year starter at linebacker. He had to get surgery on his shoulder right after the South Carolina game. So, really the defense has been hurt a ton. And so it's going to be the backups and the depth that's really going to be stressed out on that side. On the offensive side of the ball, not as bad, but a few guys on the offensive line. Biggest name on the offense really most recently would be Antonio Williams, Cade Klubnik's go-to guy. I like to joke that if Cade gets to the NFL, which we assume he will, hopefully whatever GM is out there will also draft Antonio Williams, because that is Cade's favorite wide receiver. So he will be without his favorite wide receiver in this game as well.
Okay. And honestly, Morgan, a lot of things that you said generally about your Clemson Tigers, I could relate to a ton for Penn State, because this was a game that I thought you and I, like, hey, I'm going to get to meet Morgan. We're going to talk about a playoff game at some point. I'm kind of theorizing everything in August, September. No. We're talking about a Pinstripe Bowl at Yankee Stadium, which is cool. It's fun, but it's not as fun as what could have been a game on New Year's Day, right? So a lot of the things that you're saying, hey, really good player, high-end draft prospect, but had a disappointing season. And the defense, the depth chart, well, it could be better. It hasn't been that great. Tom Allen's your defensive coordinator, right? I know him all too well from this last season. But honestly, the same setup here for Penn State. It's kind of figuring out the easier conversation might be at the end of the day, who is playing, and that's really saying something. The biggest names to know about for Penn State side are the key defensive players that are going to be missing. Starting defensive tackle Zane Durant, starting free safety Zach Wheatley, starting defensive back, or I guess co-starting because he was in and out of the lineup, but AJ Harris, there's days where he can have a really good game. He was supposed to be cornerback number one, kind of rolled in and out of the lineup. Nicholas Singleton, star running back for them, who had a disappointing season to say the least, but did come on towards the end of the season. He's going to be missing from this game. He has opted out because he's going to go into the NFL draft. So right there, 4 key starters, generally speaking, for this Penn State team, in addition to a starting offensive lineman, Vanga Ioane, another starting defensive end in Zariah Fisher, another starting defensive back, co-starting defensive back, Elliot Washington, and then Chaz Coleman, who kind of since the mid-season point, Penn State fans will know him. This guy, high upside defensive end, most likely going to transfer to Ohio State. He's not going to be playing in this game. It's not a shock, but when you're already missing 2 defensive linemen, this one hurts as well. But and then there's some role players that are going to be missing too. But the one that's kind of the newest is freshman linebacker who was coming on strong later on in the season. I would characterize him as a starting caliber player at this point because he rotated in, got a lot of snaps late down the stretch. Alex Tatch is going to be out due to injury. So long story short, both of these rosters do not look the way that they should, Morgan.
Yeah, it has been disappointing. We weren't expecting to play each other in this kind of situation where 2 teams just kind of were not meeting expectations. But the good thing is that we still get one game to play. I've been trying to frame it as that the past couple of days, is just because, we can sit here and beat up on the fact that both teams did not live up to expectations. But this is one more chance to get your team out there on the field, get some of the guys that were maybe just always stuck behind somebody else opportunities to play, get those guys that just were tried and true, wearing your colors and just Clemson men or Penn State men, their one last shot to glory. So I'm looking forward to that in that sense, because our own rival South Carolina did not get a bowl game because they didn't win enough games. So I'm going to enjoy the fact that they get one more game, but it is definitely what I'm calling purgatory, football purgatory, because it's not the 2025 team. It's not the 2026 team. So it's kind of that just in between team that is like, what do you really? A lot of fans said, well, this will be, I've seen it in the comments from my side. I don't know about you, but it'll be devastating if Clemson loses. I don't really take it that way at all. I mean, I very easily could see Clemson losing this game. I think it's going to be a good game, at least a hard fought game, at least not a blowout by one team or another. I'm not expecting that. I don't see a huge advantage one way or another, but I don't think it's going to be detrimental at all. Just the fact they get one more game. And as you mentioned, in Yankee Stadium, I mean, in an era, Zach, where the bowl games pretty much, we don't know if they're going to last that much longer, because
who knows?
They're trying to expand the playoffs. They're trying to move the season up earlier. They're trying to get rid of out of conference games almost entirely, it seems. So college football is still in a very big up and down flux. We don't know what the end result will be. And to be able to play, again, New York City, I'm already seeing videos. I didn't get a chance to go up there this year, but I'm seeing videos of the guys just really enjoying the trip. That's kind of what bowl games used to be, I mean, where the seniors or the players would get rewarded for their efforts of that season for having a winning season. And so it is nice to see Clemson playing up there and getting going through practice and getting rewarded with enjoying the sights and sounds of the city. Just yesterday, they got to spend at the 9/11 Museum, and I'm sure I've been there. I went there last year. I'm sure that was very impactful for them. So those experiences are things you're going to be able to take with you. Hopefully the game Saturday ends up being a good one.
2 things you said there that really stand out to me. One, the football purgatory comment, because I can relate to that one as well. This is not a reflection of last year's team, the 2025 team. It is also not an indicator for the 2026 team as well, because both programs are going to look completely different. Also, you said this is going to be a hard-fought game. It absolutely will be, because the Clemson players are still going to rally around Dabo Swinney. The Penn State players are going to rally around interim head coach Terry Smith, who is coaching being the head coach of one final time for this Penn State team to cap off this season. So with that being said, what's Penn State going to put together? What's Clemson going to put together? Again, Tom Allen's now the defensive coordinator over there. So is he going to have any tricks up his sleeve for Penn State? We're going to discuss all of that next here on this Locked On Crossover. And this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. NFL Sundays move fast. One big play and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift. A receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into that moment. Live spreads and money lines adjust instantly. Player props update as guys heat up. You can bet next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and more. It keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, every possibility. You can bet on NFL football. You can bet on college football as well. Since we're talking about it, Penn State versus Clemson in their upcoming bowl game. Lines are available on FanDuel for this game. Clemson is the favorite in this one. 3.5 points on the spread, minus 154 on the money line for Clemson, plus 130 if you're thinking Penn State for an upset here. The total is set at 48.5. If you like those lines, you can bet them over at FanDuel.com or the FanDuel app. And if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, all you got to do is visit FanDuel.com, place your NFL live bets. That is FanDuel. The game moves fast, and so can you. And once again, thank you for making Locked On Nittany Lions and Locked On Clemson your first listener watch of the day. And thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network out there. If you haven't already, go check out our all new Everydayer Club. If you haven't heard about it, this is a way to get better access to both Penn State and Clemson content here on the Locked On Podcast Network. As a member of the Everydayer Club, you will get access to an ad-free audio feed for Locked On Nittany Lions or Locked On Clemson, compatible with Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and every major podcasting app. You will also get an invite to a members-only Locked On Everydayer Club Discord server, which includes a group chat just for listeners of these shows. Go to lockedonnittanylions.supercast.com or lockedonclemson.supercast.com or tap the link in the show notes to learn more. Penn State is currently a 3.5 point underdog. Maybe the lines have been going, they've been moving around and stuff, but this will be a close game. I think, Morgan, you framed it perfectly so far. Hard fought. It's going to be a good game because it's going to be close. Penn State and Clemson, again, almost mirror images of each other for a lot of the unfortunate reasons for the season. Disappointed expectations. I think my semifinals prediction was Penn State and Clemson. I'm almost kind of embarrassed to put that out publicly again, but that's where I had both of these teams because Drew Aller was supposed to be a top-tier draft pick. Cade Klubnik was supposed to be a top-tier draft pick at the respective quarterback positions. Penn State improved its wide receiver core at the time. Clemson had superstars, right, guys? And then guys get injured. They never live up to that. You add a Tom Allen that Clemson fans were all excited once upon a time, and it just never really materialized, right? There were growing pains, there were struggles, there were bumps in the road. Same thing for Penn State. Jim Knowles, best defensive coordinator coming over from Ohio State. No, not quite. So what these teams will do, I'm eager to know your side of it, Morgan, for Clemson, obviously, but Penn State, they looked really good down the stretch. This was a team that shouldn't have made a bowl game. They were 3-6. They, for a lack of better terminology, they were truly left for dead. Terry Smith, the fact that he was able to rally, they beat Michigan State, Nebraska. They didn't beat any good teams. They looked so much better against those 3 Big Ten teams that they beat down the stretch than they did against the likes of Villanova, FIU, and Nevada at the beginning of the season when they were totally at full strength and different coaching setup with James Franklin as the guy. So Penn State, I expect their blueprint is going to be exactly the same as it was that helped them build that winning streak down the stretch, which is going to rely on the run game, which Katron Allen, the star running back, the co-star running back to Nicholas Singleton, he's going to be the main guy, which he had been down the stretch, which is perfect. At least that's the way things are trending. There are going to be other key veterans that are going to play. So I do like Penn State's chances in this game because they're not missing too many key elements that take away from what they were able to do successfully down the stretch.
Yeah, I mean, even with the opt-outs that you mentioned, the biggest thing that I see is a team that's going to want to dictate the time of possession and going to want to run the football, going to want to kind of beat up Clemson. Also, there's some rumors of snow, maybe not down here in South Carolina. Today was 75 degrees. Tomorrow
Must be nice.
tomorrow looks like it's going to be 75 again. So down here, we're wearing shorts for Christmas, but up there, it seems like it's going to be much colder. I am curious how the team will react. I know that it's kind of an external factor of the cold, but this team doesn't play a lot of games, in that kind of weather. So we'll see how well the team as a whole can do. On the defensive side of the ball, as far as plans, you're right. Tom Allen's 4-2-5 just did not fit the group of guys that he had. No. Unfortunately, coming into it, it was, it was kind of like they've got a lot of clay to work with, a lot of good clay. But then as the season went on, it was like, well, maybe he needs to get his guys. So the clay kind of became not good clay anymore. So the narrative shifted, and I didn't really like that. And I really kind of put a lot of blame on Tom Allen. He tried to fit this team into a 4-2-5, regardless of what personnel he had. He didn't have a team that was fast enough for it. He didn't have a team that could get pressure with just 4 for most of the season. And so he just continued to do that. Clemson had to send 6 or 7. And I did not mean to make that meme joke just now, but Clemson had to send that many guys just to get to the quarterback. And sometimes they still wouldn't get there. So I was really frustrated with Tom Allen, to be honest with you, towards the middle of the season. They rebounded in a lot of ways because of what happened on the offensive side of the ball. On the offensive side of the ball, Garrett Riley, a Broyles Award winner, seemed to have gone dumb about the running game. He forgot that you actually need to establish the run. You can't just go out there and throw it all over the place. Cade Klubnik's the kind of guy. He's not what I would call a Deshaun or a Trevor or a Tim Tebow or one of those guys that's just going to, or even like a Manziel or anything. Like, he's not one of those guys that's just going to win a game. He's not going to take a bad game plan and make it a good one or make plays out of nothing. Cade is one of those guys who more often than not in the stressful situations makes kind of the not so great decision. So if you keep Cade out of trying to be the hero, if you keep him out of trying to win the game by himself, and you give him a running game that can give him a little bit of ease in the pocket, then the team does much better. And they were actually able to win the last 4 games of the season. Florida State, Louisville on the road, Furman, and then South Carolina. A lot of those games, a lot of people felt like maybe weren't winnable. So the Garrett Riley settled in and remembered that he has to have a running game. I hope that that's the plan for this weekend. He cannot forget about Adam Randall. He needs to use his running game, and he needs to not go away from it. So that's the first thing. On the defensive side of the ball, Tom Allen has got probably the biggest challenge of all because, as I mentioned, the 4-2-5 really didn't fit. Well, that was with the starters. Now he doesn't have this, he didn't have any of those guys, and so I am really concerned about what that game plan is going to be. To me, I'm not trying to give away what I'm thinking in the prediction segment, but if your running back, Katron Allen, doesn't have a monster game, I'm going to be pretty shocked, to be honest with you. I think it sets up for him to have a good game, against Clemson.
He's now the all-time leading rusher in Penn State history. He's going to add to that total. I'm putting the yardage total at 150.5. Even whether Penn State wins or loses this game, Katron Allen, I still think, is going to go off because he's not going to be in any sort of timeshare. He's going to get all of the carries and then some. But it's also the matchup that presents itself. Penn State offensively has a fairly simple game plan. I do like that Andy Kotelnicki, the offensive coordinator who has to find new work for next season, is staying behind to coach in this game. I do think that is very commendable on his part. He could have packed it. Jim Knowles is gone. He said, I'm not calling plays in this game. I'm going down to Tennessee. That's fine. Andy Kotelnicki staying behind for one final rodeo. But play action, run the ball with Katron Allen. It's the key matchup, which I'll kind of tease here. I think the biggest X factor of them all, and we'll get into other ones, is the fact that Penn State is only missing one starting offensive lineman. It is fairly reasonable to expect that all other 5 or 6 of them that played frequently, that rotated in quite a bit, are going to be ready to go for Penn State and are going to be fully healthy with the star running back, with the backup quarterback who finally settled in after a few games and looked honestly better than Drew Aller at times and Ethan Grunkemeyer against a defensive line, a front seven that is going to be missing a star player in TJ Parker. He was committed to Penn State once upon a time. That was a massive loss when he flipped to Clemson. I think he's a stud. Same thing, Peter Woods. They're missing all of these superstar players going up against Penn State's offensive line that's still about at 90%. They're only missing one player. That kind of sets up for disaster for Clemson.
Yeah, I look. Can we not talk about it? Can we just go to something else? Because
I want to. Like, I want to talk about it. That's why I brought it up.
Yeah, I totally get it. That's the thing that is, and like I said, Peter Woods has been frustrating this year. Statistically, though, defensive tackles don't get a lot, on the board.
Mm-hmm.
But he warranted a lot of double teams. So you're not going to have that. And with TJ Parker, again, he kind of dropped off big time with his sacks. Now Clemson will have Will Help from Purdue transfer guy that has really been one of the best players in the team. But yeah, for me, I do feel like that's going to be a huge tell of this team is Tom Allen is going to have his hands full to try to win this game. Maybe the offense, if Garrett Riley can settle in quickly and get his offense going, maybe those X factors on the offensive side of the ball can score quickly. And so, the defensive, lack of starters is going to be maybe covered up a little bit by how good the offense is. That maybe is one hope that I have on my side of the ball.
You brought up the weather as well. We're going to get into our X factors, our predictions as well, because naturally there would be a lot of points scored between these two teams with the players that are missing on both defenses, the way that these offenses have operated down the stretch. But weather might throw a wrench into all of that. We're going to talk about it all next here, give you our final score predictions coming up next here on this Locked On Crossover. And this episode is brought to you by Game Time. There's nothing like college football. Tailgates, packed stadiums, being right in the middle of it all. The energy, the bands, the moments you remember forever. But actually getting tickets, that part used to be frustrating. Long queues, logins, and prices jumping at checkout. That's why Game Time gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to unlock amazing college football tickets and experiences in just a few taps. Open up the Game Time app. You can look at college football games, choose your favorite team or the game you want to go to, and you will be surprised how fast it was to find great seats. The app is incredibly easy to use. You can go from browsing to buying tickets in just minutes. One of the best features, you get to see your view from your seat ahead of time before you actually go to buy. So you'll know exactly what your point of view is going to be ahead of time. You got zone deals. You can pick the section, Game Time picks the seats, and you'll save even more money. Also, knowing the prices include all fees up front, make the whole process stress-free. Take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account. Use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that is code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Penn State again, 3.5-point underdog as it stands at the time of this recording, right? We'll give you the official lines again from our friends over at FanDuel. 3.5-point spread in favor of the Clemson Tigers. Minus 154 on the money line, plus 130 for Penn State. The total is set at 48.5. And the reason we haven't seen a lot of line movement is because I think people are just waiting. Okay, are there going to be any more opt-outs? Are there going to be any more surprises on both sides? Also, what's the weather look like? Because again, Penn State and Clemson, I think this game turns into an insane shootout if it's in a dome. If the weather's nice, say, okay, if this was the Boca Raton Bowl, if this was the Hawaii Bowl or a game out in Los Angeles, Penn State and Clemson would put up a ton of points guaranteed. They can still do that because I think both teams will be able to run the football effectively on each side. What is going to complicate things, okay, if you do sell out for the run, and I think that I do think that Clemson might, it would benefit them to throw the ball with Penn State missing not one, not two, but three co-starting defensive backs in some capacity. These are all key contributors. They're missing three of them. Okay. Those are your veteran starter guys. You have to leave some inexperienced players out on an island against really talented receivers. Well, if it's going to snow, if it's going to sleet, there is 3 to 6 inches of snow accumulation expected over the course of the afternoon in the prime spot when this game kicks off at noon. And then later on, so around later in the game, around 2, 3, 4 p.m. I'm not a meteorologist, but I'm reading the weather report here. There's supposed to be snow leading up to it on Friday as well. So it's just going to be wintry conditions across the board. It doesn't seem like it's going to be too windy, but both of these teams will default to running the ball because throwing it is going to be a little tough.
Yeah, if I want to give you my X factor on the Clemson sideline, I would say that obviously Cade Klubnik being back was huge. Many times you could have a situation where you're having to go with your backup quarterback. It is nice to have Cade one last time, although a lot of fans have said, hey, I'm done with Cade. I don't want to see any more of it. And even myself many times have said, you know what, it'd be nice to see someone else. But I think as we continue going through the end of the season, most of the Clemson fan base wants to see Dabo throw the money at somebody from the transfer portal. So the guys that are on the roster right now are not the next up, even though they may think they are. From the fan base standpoint, we're looking for someone, that may cost some money to bring in from the outside, from the transfer portal. So having Cade back in is good. I think it's good for the team to just kind of have their leader on the offense. But for me, the main X factor would be a guy like Adam Randall would be the running back. But I'm going to say wide receiver wise is going to be TJ Moore. He's quietly, when they needed it, had 100-yard games, been able to continue moving the chain, been that reliable guy when Antonio Williams is not out there. So, and his whole family's already up in New York City. They're all enjoying the sights and sounds of everything. So he has his support group there with him. And I really do think he's probably one of the least talked about superstars on this team, just because he hasn't had as great of a season as he did as a true freshman, being one of the higher receiving yard guys up there with like Ryan Williams and those guys and Jeremiah Smith. But so TJ Moore is one, Adam Randall's the other. That would probably be what I would lean on the offensive side of the ball. You want to go ahead and give me your offense too, or you want me to go ahead and tell you my defense?
I mean, the same people that I brought up over the course of the show. I expect the starting offensive line to be fully intact. So even though they're missing one player, they had 2 other guys that would rotate in at those same positions. So Penn State had, again, 6 or 7 different offensive linemen that they would rotate in frequently. So they're down 1, next man up mentality against a hindered Clemson defensive line rotation. So Katron Allen's going to be the guy. Like he's going to be the X factor. Penn State's starting offensive line against Clemson's backup defensive line. That's the X factor. That's the matchup of the game when you're looking at it from the benefit of Penn State's side. So what do you got on defense then to counteract that?
On defense, it is the biggest worry. You were always going to rely on Sammy Brown, one of the best players in the country.
He's great. He's great.
Really, Clemson, if you notice from, I don't know if it's ESPN or CBS, but they had like the top 150 players of the season. And Clemson originally started with like 6. And then they finished the season with just 1. And that just 1 was right almost outside of the list. And it was Sammy Brown. So middle linebacker Sammy Brown is literally in every single play. So he'll be all over the place. Will Helt, the transfer from Purdue, was probably the 3rd best player on the team. And he's back. They gave him a huge payday to come back. He was rumored to have getting ready to go to the NFL, but he's going to give it one more shot with Clemson. So that's been huge for 2026. Having him on the field for Saturday is going to be huge as well, because he's one of the only guys that, like I said, TJ Parker just struggled to get to the backfield, and Will Helt did not have that problem. So he'll be one of those guys that needs to step up and be the superstar that he can be. The biggest thing is, like, who else is going to help him? Who is going to help Sammy and Will Helt?
Supporting cast.
I don't really know, because a lot of these guys have just been forever backups, and so I know that they can come in for 2 or 3 plays, but I don't know if they can go in and play like 40 plays. So that's the concern that I have. Who is Vic Burley? Who is Caden Story? Who is Steph Island Green really? Or Darian Mayo? These guys are names that Clemson fans know, but they know because, like I said, they've substituted in, but not because they've actually done anything significant on the stat sheet at all. So this whole defensive front seven is going to be a huge question mark of who, if anyone, and if there's no one, then Zach, I think what I'm thinking is going to happen. If nobody else helps Will Helt and Sammy Brown out, then it can't just be a 2-man show here.
Yeah. I definitely think I hope you got a score prediction ready for me. Here's how I'll start to frame it. The first team that gets to 30 wins this game. And I think it's very possible with what's missing on defense, but it sounds like Clemson is going to have those larger lingering issues here. This one, again, Saturday, December 27th, noon Eastern time from Yankee Stadium. It's the Bad Boy Mowers Pinstripe Bowl. Penn State is a 3.5-point underdog per our friends at FanDuel as it stands right now. I'm taking Penn State and the points. I'm taking you don't even need the points. Forget the points for Penn State. I'm going with the money line here because it's what Penn State has available to them. It's Penn State being able to capitalize. It's not going against their momentum. The losses that they have key players like Denai Dennis Sutton, unless anything radically changes, which I would highly doubt. But Amari Campbell, you had other players that stepped up in a big way. And again, the offense isn't taking all of these unnecessary hits. Okay, Katron Allen's going to play. The starting offensive line, the wide receiver core that started the passing game opened up for Penn State. Ethan Grunkemeyer, the quarterback's in a prove-it moment. Give me Penn State. I will say it's still going to be close. Don't get me wrong, because I think both teams will be able to move the football. I'm going to go 33-30. Penn State over Clemson. I do think there's a number of points, and weather is also going to help Penn State too.
Yeah. And, I've kind of stayed away from the snow part because, again, I don't want to be an excuse maker. I don't want to use external factors as a reason, but I do agree that if it becomes a game where it's going into that old school football from the 60s where it's just ground and pound, run, punt, until something breaks loose, that would set up perfect for Penn State. I don't normally do specific score predictions because I am very superstitious. And I will preface this as the Locked On Clemson fan base knows me. I am a very nervous fan. I'm a graduate. I'm a fan, longtime fan, and I'm a very nervous fan. If it were me, and I've already done this on the radio, I have taken Penn State plus the points. But my heart, Zach, tells me that Clemson can squeak away a 1-point win, So maybe Clemson gets the win and Penn State, if you take the points, can also get the win. How about we do that?
The hook is there for a reason. We could, but I mean, Penn State bettors could be happy with 3.5, and Clemson still wins on the money line, right? But I do think this game, if this was at a different location, if this was in the southern part of the country, the western part of the country, or indoors, totally different, because I think Clemson's passing game, they'll be able to run enough to keep up. Again, maybe my score total might even be a little high at that point because they're going to be running the football a lot. You're going to have the clock constantly going. I just can't help but think as we talk about this, it's just going to be downhill sledding. I mean that literally for both teams. So this will be a fun game because there's still talent on both sides. A lot of prove-it moments for a lot of individual players, and we'll see how it all unfolds this Saturday, December 27th in New York City. He is Morgan Thomas, the host of Locked On Clemson. My name is Zach Sako, the host of Locked On Nittany Lions. We do this daily here on our respective shows. If you are new, subscribe to our YouTube channels and wherever you get your podcasts for the latest around Penn State and Clemson. Morgan, this was great. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to make this happen, to preview this game. And I wish you nothing but the best of luck with all your Clemson's future endeavors here. So thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on, and go Tigers.